All right, shalom, shalom, Mr. Picard.
Shalom, shalom.
All right. It's good to see everybody here tonight. And as always, we're going to try to have a nice dynamic lesson through the set-apart spirit of the Father, Ab Yahuwah, through his young son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Now, before we get started, the title of today's class is If Words Could Kill. Again, if words could kill. So this is still a continuation of preparation for the last days and the whole thing that's going on with the prophecies and Revelations, the first chapter. But he said he was going to slow it up just a little bit because there's still a couple of key things that we need to make sure that we have established, because building a strong foundation is going to be extremely, extremely important. All right, so again, if words could kill is going to be the topic of tonight's class. Now, anybody have any testimonies they would like to share? How the Father's been merciful, a blessing, and all of that good stuff in their life since the last time we met.
Yeah, we didn't get that snow.
Yeah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. They was talking about that real heavy, so the Father kept that up north for the most part. So, hallelujah. So, Mr. Picard, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and get the ball rolling. We're going to stand up and face the east. We're going to have our chief Zakim to blow the shofar 7 times for us. And I'll do the prayer. And then from there, we'll read the renewed covenant. And we'll go over the book of Shemot, the 10 Devarim, the 10 words. All right? Everybody's told? All right, everybody's good. Hallelujah. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all that is evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the esteem belongs to the Father, Ab Yahuwah, forever and ever. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
Okay, Mr. Picard, we'll read the renewed covenant, Yirmiyahu, 31st chapter, verses 31 to 33. Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Yashra'al and the house of Yehudah, not according to the covenant that I made you with the fathers in the day I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith Yahuwah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Yashra'al. After those days, said Yahuwah, I will put my law in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
The 10 Commandments, the book of Shemot, the 20th chapter, verses 1 through 17. And Yahuwah spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahuwah thy Elohim, which brought thee out of the land of Mizraim, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other Elohim before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, thy sovereign, thy Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of Yahuwah thy Elohim in vain, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that take his name in vain. Remember the Shabbat day to keep it set apart. 6 days shall thou labor, and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Shabbat of Yahuwah thy Elohim. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days Yahuwah made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahuwah blessed the Shabbat day and made it set apart. Honor thy father and thy mother, that the days may be long upon the land which Yahuwah thy Elohim giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Hallelujah. Everybody's in agreement because everybody ready. Hallelujah. Okay. Mishpachah, Mishpachah, Mishpachah. Hallelujah. So, all right. We pray also for those who were not able to make it here tonight. We pray that they'll be able to watch us on Facebook, or later on throughout the week on YouTube. But we also want to send out a blessing again to those who are not able to make it. May the Father bless them with all esteem. Now, Mishpachah, we're going to be going over a very, very sensitive topic. And I'm going to put out my disclaimer now. This is not a personal attack against anybody. If I have to write this in all caps, okay, please. I mean, it's not a personal attack against anybody. When I do my lessons, I'm not just teaching, I'm also listening to what I'm saying too, because I'm the one that's actually putting the lesson together. So these instructions are also for me. Nobody is excluded. Nobody. And again, this is not a personal attack against anybody whatsoever. And the title of today's class is If Words Could Kill. And actually, in the agreement that we read earlier, when we go to the 10 Commandments in Exodus, the 20th chapter, verses 1 through 17, we're going to actually be, verse 9 is going to be extremely important in today's lesson. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. We all say these things. We all say them. But whether or not we're really digesting, when we read the scriptures, are we digesting what we're reading? And a lot of times, we might just read scripture and not really dissect it and get a full understanding of what the scriptures is actually saying. And a lot of times we might miss it. So before we get started, we want to begin by giving all esteem to the Father of Yahuwah for his love, his mercy, his kindness, his generosity, all the favors that the Father has been showing us. We want to make sure that we always give esteem to the Father for that. And sending his ultimate love gift, Yahushua HaMashiach, who is and was that atoning sacrifice for the nation of Yashra'al. Again, Mishpachah, this is going to be a sensitive class. And again, this is not a personal attack against anybody. And just to show why I'm doing this particular lesson is after Saturday service, I was going to actually do a class based upon who was Jacob actually wrestling. Because a lot of people believe that Jacob was actually wrestling with the Mashiach, I mean, the headlocks and they're wrestling and tussling all over the ground, and so there's a Hebraic way of looking at that, all right? And so I was going to do a lesson on that, and so I began to start doing some research, and this is maybe about 7, 8, 9 o'clock, somewhere around that time. And then the Father was like, no, I want you to do this lesson here. And I said, I can do that another time. You know what? So he said, no, you're going to do this one here. And so as I was doing my research, it kept leading me back to this lesson that we're going to be doing tonight. All right, so prayerfully we get a nice understanding or overstanding of it. The first thing that we want to tackle is promises, okay? Promises that we, the nation of Yashra'al, don't keep. Again, promises. We made promises at Mount Sinai, and it's coming to the point where we should start to keep our promises. Keep our promises. We're going to need some class participation here, so that we want to make sure that everybody is understanding or overstanding everything that's going on. If we can have our brother Solomon, if he can read Isaiah the 54th chapter, verse 4, 5, 6, and 7, please. Nice and loud, because they want to hear your masculine voice.
Yashra'al, or Isaiah 54, verse 4. Fear not, for you shall not be ashamed, neither be confounded, for you shall not be put to shame, for you shall forget the shame of your youth, and shall not remember the reproach of your widowhood anymore.
All right, so verse 4 is very important, because right now Israel is considered like a widow. All right, Northern Kingdom was given a bill of divorce, but eventually what happened now is that Southern Kingdom was also kicked out of the house. So now we have a groom who was married to a woman, gave this woman a bill of divorce, a letter of separation, and sent her about her business. But Scriptures is telling us here now there's going to come a point where the nation of Yashra'al would not be ashamed or confounded anymore. Verse 5 is very important so we can understand what is a relationship. Read on.
Verse 5. For your Maker is your husband, Yahuwah is his name, and your Redeemer, the set apart one of Yashra'al, the Elohim of the whole earth shall he be called.
Okay, so thy Maker. So what we have here now is that we're using marriage terminology. All right, so we want to make sure that it's clear. It says thy Maker is thine husband, and the word maker is very important. It's the word Asha. Okay, Asha. Not Asha as a female. That's not what it's talking about. Your maker and your creator. Okay, but again, because here we have vowel points that are placed here. So it's not Isha, but Asha. And that word means to do, to fashion, to accomplish, and to make. And that's the Strong's number 6213. So the one that fashioned us is thine husband. Very important. All right. Israel is the bride. The Mashiach is the husband. So he's the sovereign of hosts, is his name, and thy Redeemer. The word Redeemer is very important because the only one that can redeem us from out of this situation would have to be a kinsman. He would have to be of the bloodline of Israel. That's just the way that it operates. Someone from another nation cannot redeem the nation of Israel. Read on.
Verse 6. For Yahuwah has called you a woman forsaken, grieving in her ruach.
As a woman. That's what you have?
Yes. For
okay.
As a woman forsaken and grieved in her ruach. And a woman of youth, when you were refused, says your Elohim, for a small moment have I forsaken you, but with great mercies will I gather you.
Hallelujah. So we see all of these marital terms being used in the book of Yeshayahu, verses 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this is a relationship that the Father is trying to have with us. With this relationship is going to be extremely important because we're living in the very last days. Every single Israelite group recognizes and understands that something is about to hit the fan. And so it is very important for us to understand where we need to be in our relationship with the Father. We read in Revelations, we went through plagues 1 and 2. valves 1 and 2. I see trumpets 1 and 2, and valves 1 and 2. So, being that we're seeing that all these things are about to come, what type of relationship should we have with the Father? Because he's saying that I'm your maker, I'm your husband, but at this particular point in the relationship, we're considered widows. All right, so we're still waiting for that marriage supper to take place so that we can be reunited with the groom. If we're not reunited with the groom, or we're not rehearsing these righteous acts now, there's absolutely no way in the world, according to Scripture, that we're going to get it right during this moving back and forth. Because the Scripture tells us in the book of Ezra, 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter, is that we're going to be like as pilgrims. That means moving from place to place. We're not going to be stationary, like we're going to hold the fort down with this house here or whatever else that we decide to to live at. That's not how Scripture says it's going to happen. This is the reason why I did a class a couple of years ago, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, on the 42 steps in the sand. We're going to be moving, all right? Moving. So let's make sure that we understand exactly how this is going to all transpire. Let's go to the book of Yirmiyahu, the 3rd chapter, verse 14. If we can get a Koti, Catherine, to read that. That's okay? We good? Zabu?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yirmiyahu, the 3rd chapter, verse 14. So pay very, very close attention to what's going on in verse 14.
Okay. Jeremiah 3, verses 14.
Mm-hmm.
Turn, O backsliding children, saith Yahuwah, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city, and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion.
Right, hallelujah. So that word turn is actually shuv, which means to return. So just to let us know that this is a marriage, and if the Father is telling us to return, like we had said last week, you can only return if you were in a relationship with someone. So this is a relationship that has gone sour. The Father gave both houses, northern and southern kingdom, basically the boot. Get out of here. You can't be in the land that I promised you with the behavior and the way that you're conducting yourselves amongst one another. So again, words and how we communicate with one another is going to be extremely, extremely important. Extremely important. The next thing that we want to talk about is that the Father Ab Yahuwah has kept all of his promises. Every single last one of them. Every last one of them. The one that has broken wedlock is the nation of Yashra'al, which is us. We're going to go to the book of Yahushua, or the book of Joshua, and that's the 21st chapter. And we're reading verses 43 to 45. And if we can get a Koti, I can. What is your name again, sis? Zihava. Hallelujah. If we can hear from a Koti tonight, we would gladly appreciate it. The book of Joshua, the 21st chapter, verses 43 to 45. Okay, so watch how the Father's keeping all of his promises. And the Father of Yahuwah gave unto Israel all the land which he swore, which was a promise now, to give unto their fathers, and they possessed it, which is the land, and dwelt therein. Verse 44.
And the Lord gave them rest round about, according to all that he sware unto their fathers, and there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. There failed not aught of any good thing which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel, all came to pass. Hallelujah.
So when we look at that word, just for edification here, we look at that word L-O-R-D. We have what they call the tetragrammaton, which is actually the Yod, Hey, Hu, Hey. That's considered the tetragrammaton, or the tetra, means 4 grammar or letters or words. And so this would be the Paleo, the ancient Hebrew. And if we was to do it in the Aramaic, we have the Yod, Hey, we have the Hu, Hey. So this is, again, the Paleo, and this is the modern or the Aramaic. All right, so again, I just wanted to share with everybody that the Father has kept all of the promises that he made with the nation of Yashra'al, and gave the nation of Yashra'al peace and safety, and there was not a nation that could stand up against the nation of Yashra'al. And the Father, again, the groom, has kept all of his promises that he's made to the nation of Yashra'al. If we can get Brother Zabud, Aki Zabud, if he can do Numbers, the 23rd chapter, verse 19.
God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Has he said, and shall he not do it?
Mm-hmm.
Or has he spoken, and he shall not make it good?
So everybody sees what's going on here with the promises, and how that Elohim. So again, when we see the word G-O-D, God, we're talking about actually, in Hebrew, this would be the Aleph and the Lamed, and this is pronounced Al. And in the ancient, it would be, yeah, that's right. And then we would have the Aleph and the Lamed. And so this is actually like singular, and plural would be, as we know, Elohim. Okay? So, is everybody able to see what's going on so far with the promises and everything that the Father has made? And the one that's actually in violation of the wedding agreement is the bride. She is considered the menstruous woman. She's the whore. She broke wedlock, which is us. And what the Father did now was send his ultimate sacrifice, Yahushua HaMashiach, to be that atoning sacrifice to reconcile this oneness or this union back together again. 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, verse, Malachi, the first...
1 Kings or 2 Kings?
Oh,
never mind.
1 Kings. Yeah, 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, verse 56. If we can get Yaakov, James, if he can read that for us, please.
1 Kings, chapter 8, verse 56. Baruch be the Lord, that hath given rest unto his people, Yashra'al, according to all of that he promised. There have not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moshe, his servant.
Oh, and that is very important. So we had now the promises that we don't keep, the promises that the Father has kept. In verse 56 speaks volumes. Blessed be the sovereign of Yahuwah, that have given rest unto, singular now, his people, Yashra'al, according to all that he promised. There have not failed one, not one word of all his good promises, or promise which he promised by the hand of his servant Moshe. Okay? So, again, Mishpachah. First of all, we don't do personal attacks. We don't do personal attacks. There's a word that we're going to have to look at. And this word is actually Tazaraf, spelled T-Z-A-R-A-A-T-H, right? And you just break down each letter, because just a little Hebrew here. This right here is a word. So we have Tazah, or in ancient Hebrew, you have Tazah, you have the resh. Here we have the resh, the aleph, and we have the tau, or the tha. And we have the aleph and the tau. So we're going to need to know exactly what's going on with that word there. Uh-oh. This is an ayin, not an aleph. This is an ayin, and this is this is the ayin. Just for edification, the ayin also makes an ah sound. Okay, so this Hebrew letter makes an ah sound. This Hebrew letter makes an ah sound. That's not an O. It's not an O. So again, to further explain what's going on with this word Tazaroth, let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings. Watch how this unfolds. 2 Kings, we're going to start the first chapter, verse. No, 2 Kings, the 5th chapter, verse 1. If we can get a Koti to read half of it, and we have her each to read the other half. But please pay very, very close attention here. Very close attention. And again, this is not a personal attack against anyone.
2 Kings chapter 5, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master,
Mm-hmm.
and honorable, because by him Yahuwah had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper.
Okay. He was a leper. That is very, very important. The word leper is zara, all right, or sarah. And that's the Strong's number 6879. And it means to be diseased of skin, be leprous, to be a leper, to have leprosy. And then it just goes on into the Strong's definition of primitive root to scourge, that is intransitively and figuratively to be stricken with leprosy and leper. So let me just say this right off the bat. What we see as leprosy today is not the same type of leprosy for the most part what we see today. And we're going to go into that a little bit later on. So if anybody wakes up tomorrow with a pimple or a bump or whatever like that, that's not leprosy. That's not what we're talking about here, all right? So I'm not talking about your hormones and the changing of your pH balance in your skin and stuff like that. That is not what we're talking about here, all right? This is something totally, totally different. But you must pay very close attention. If you pay very close attention, we all should be good. And like Moreh say, we should be cooking with good grease, some kosher grease. All right, so read on.
Okay, 2 Kings 5, verse 2. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away captive out of the land of Yashra'al and a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife.
Okay, so this woman here, I can say little woman, but this woman here was, she's an Israelite woman. Read on.
And she said unto her mistress, Would Yahuwah my Elohim wear the prophet that is in Samaria?
Mm-hmm.
For he would recover him of his leprosy.
Mm-hmm.
And one went in and told his Yahuwah, saying, Thus and thus said the maid, and this of the land of Yashra'al.
Mm-hmm.
And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Yashra'al. And he departed, and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment.
Okay, because we're looking at now here is that we want to cure Naaman now, okay, of his leprosy. Okay, so this king is sending, wealth, a ton of wealth now, because we have Naaman now being a good man of valor. You know, he's a mighty man of war. And so we want Naaman here cured. Read on, please.
Want me to continue?
Yes, let me see, half of 27 is what, 13? Okay. So if you can read 13, then we have Zabud.
And he brought the letter to the king of Yashra'al, saying, Now with this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Yashra'al had read the letter, that he rent his clothes, and said, Am I Elohim, to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me.
So everybody see what's going on here, right? This story here, there's a lot of meat here. Read on.
And it was so, when Elisha, the man of Yahuwah, had heard that the king of Yashra'al had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel.
Hallelujah.
So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean.
Hallelujah. So, how many times is he supposed to do this washing?
7 times.
7 times.
Okay, 7 times. And he has leprosy, right? How you spell it? L-E-P? Okay, hallelujah, protein. Okay, read him, please.
But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of Yahuwah the Elohim, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. I'm sorry, did I read it?
Yeah, that was correct.
That's right.
No, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage. And his servant came near, and spake unto him, and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee do some great thing, wouldest thou not have done it? How much rather then would he say to thee, Wash and be clean?
Hallelujah. So everybody is following the story here, right? It's very important. Verse 14. Zabud, bring us home.
Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of Yahuwah, and his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean.
Hallelujah. Okay.
And he returned to the man of Yahuwah, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth, but in Israel.
But in Israel, okay.
Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing in thy servant. But he said, As the sovereign liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused.
So Elisha is not going to take the gifts that Naaman is offering him, because the Father has blessed Naaman through, this is very important, through Naaman. Excuse me, through Elisha. Read on.
And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto Elohims,
Right.
but unto Yahuwah.
Right, verse 17. Anybody know what just happened here? And Naaman says, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant, which is Naaman, 2 mules, burden of earth, for thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offerings nor sacrifice unto other Elohims, but unto the sovereign. What just happened now? We have Naaman because we have Elisha is not accepting any of the gifts, none of them. But we have Naaman is asking for these 2 mules now to carry earth. Because he's saying that from henceforth after now, I will not make any sacrifices until any other Elohim but to the Elohim of Yahuwah. We're talking about Jerusalem being such a set-apart place. So we have Naaman here now is saying, listen, with these 2 mules, give me now enough soil from this set-apart land, load it into the sacks, okay, of the mule here, and when I go back to my land, I'm going to now take that soil and build an altar upon that soil and never offer up any peace offering to anything to no other Elohim but to the Elohim of Yashra'al. That's I was like, wow. You know, because this guy has had leprosy and the Father has just healed him through Naaman now, and so he's showing his gratitude. And what if we were the same way, where we also would show our gratitude towards the Father the way that now this is a stranger. He's shown his gratitude for everything that the Father has done to him, for him, and we should also be in like mind, being willing now to make these ultimate sacrifices for the Father. Read on, please. Let's finish this up.
In this thing, the sovereign pardoned thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon.
Mm-hmm.
When I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, Yahuwah pardon thy servant in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way.
Watch what happens.
But Gehazi, but Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Yahuwah, said, Behold, my master hath behold, my master has spread Naaman this Syrian in not receiving at his hand that which he brought, but as Yahuwah liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him.
Right, okay.
So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, All is well. All is well.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments.
So now we have Gehazi, lying. Okay, he's lying now on, we have Elisha here. Read on.
And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house. And he let the men go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou? Gehazi, and he said, Thy servant went nowhither.
So he lied, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money and to receive garments in olive yards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and manservants and maidservants? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee and unto thy seed forever.
For how long?
Forever.
And upon his what?
His seed.
So, Ishmael, there is, remember this now, there is a such thing as, we calling it generational curses. All right? So this curse did not fall upon just Gehazi, but on his whole seed. And what fell upon him now was leprosy. All right? And we're going to define that a little bit more. You done with that?
And he went out from his presence a leopard as white as snow.
Okay. And again, that word leprosy now is actually the Hebrew word Tzar, Tazaraf. All right? So, the question is now, what causes Tazaraf? To those of that's watching us on YouTube, if I can get it all down, you let me know as I can. What causes Tazaraf? For one, we know lying, right? But let's start with the way that I have it outlined on the paper here. We have one, gossip. And again, this is not a personal attack against anyone, but we're about to go into a couple of things here. Gossip causes Tazaraf. Slander causes Tazaraf. Lies or lying causes Tazaraf. Arrogance causes Tazaraf. Envy. Watch this now. Rehashing past arguments that were supposed to have been settled, and scoffing. All these things brings Tazaraf. Now, there are writings in the Mishnah where, and I truly believe this, there was a time when Yashra'al was so spiritual and we were so interconnected with one another. Because, take for example, we have already brought out things on what is actually a relationship. A relationship is two people coming together. And that bond between those two people now are so unique, where you can actually, like a lot of us might say now that are married, wow, I can actually now pick up my wife or my Isha's conversation because you're so intertwined with one another that you know each other's, you're in one accord. So now there was a time where it talks that when any of these things took place with this out of relationship, gossip, slander, lies, arrogance, any of these things here, your significant partner now was able to pick up those things. And the person's countenance would change. Even today, you can see now, if there's a problem, you can tell whether or not your significant other is lying or not, because you can, their countenance begins to change. Their mannerism begins to change. Just like the old Walt Disney cartoon they used to have out, Pinocchio. Remember, whenever Pinocchio would lie, his nose would grow. There was actually like a discolor or something now happening to the person to let you know that they were actually lying. This is how well-toned that we once were when we were following Torah. And we're going to show some of this in Scripture. So again, what causes Tazaraf? Gossip, slander, lies, arrogance, envy, rehashing past arguments, and scoffing. A little L here. All right, so again, this is not a personal attack against anyone. The consequences for denying the Father Ab Yahuwah. Again, the consequences for denying the Father Ab Yahuwah. 2 Kings, the 7th chapter. verse 1 through 20. 1 through 20. If we can have Yahunatan, you have the Sefer Bible, right?
Yes.
And Yonatan, you have the Sefer Bible too, right?
No,
Here, no.
Oh no, I didn't want.
I
I
have the
didn't.
scriptures version.
This is super.
That might be a little bit different. So I came. If you could do that for us, please.
2 Kings 7 verse 1. Then Elisha said, Hear ye the word of Yahuwah. Thus saith Yahuwah, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, in the gate of Samaria.
Okay, so this is all happening around Northern Kingdom. Another name for Northern Kingdom is Samaria. And this is a prophecy that Elisha is sharing with Northern Kingdom. All right, read on.
Then the sovereign on whose hand the king leaned against the man of Elohim and said, Behold, if Yahuwah would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof.
Okay, this is what's going to get extremely, extremely interesting now. So there was an officer of the king whose hand leaned and answered the man of the father, which is Elisha here, and said, Behold, watch what's going on. So he's communicating with Elisha. Now there's a great famine in the land of Samaria, a great famine, to the point where our people now are eating. Read the history on what's going on here now, is that we're eating our children. Eating our children. Listen, I cook my daughter today, next week you cook your daughter or your son. This is what was happening. And the reason why there was such a great famine was because the nation of Yashra'al, particularly here now Samaria, would not follow Torah, would not do it. So being that you're not going to follow Torah, what I'm going to do now is send plagues upon you. Anybody know the 4 plagues or the 4 punishments that the scriptures talk about that he would put upon Israel for being disobedient? The sword, right? Anybody know the next one? Famine. Pestilence. Okay, you leave me now. And what was the 4th one? I think it's war, isn't it? We'll come back just to double check. But those 4 things would be sent upon the nation of Yashra'al for being disobedient. And so he's questioning now. He's saying, listen, you know what? This famine is so severe. If the Father of Yahuwah was to open up the windows of Shamayim, it would not be enough to take care of the famine that's going on right now. So he's questioning, and he's not believing in the prophecy that Elisha is sharing with him. Read on, just with the whole nation of Northern Kingdom Israelites.
2 Kings 7 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 4 leprous
Mm-hmm.
men at the entering in of the gate. And they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die?
Mm-hmm.
If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city,
Mm-hmm.
and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, and let us fall into the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die.
Mm-hmm.
And
where were these lepers at? Hmm?
At the gate.
Right, they were at the gate, so they were not in Jerusalem. They were outside of the city. They were leprous, okay? And leprous, according to scripture, is brought about through gossip, slander, lies, arrogance, envy, rehashing past arguments, and scoffing. Read on.
Verse 5. And they rose up in the twilight to go into the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For Yahuwah had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and the noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Yashra'al have hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses and their donkeys, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink, and carried thence silver and gold and raiment, and went and hid it, and came again and entered into another tent and carried thence also and went and hid it.
Okay, so we see what's going on here now. These are leprous men, these 4 men. They were not allowed inside the city. And so now the Syrians were actually encamped around Jerusalem, northern kingdom Israelites at this time, because, there was a split here. And so they began to raid, the tents of the Syrians. Okay, read on, because it's going to get real interesting.
Verse 9, then they said one to another, we do not well. This day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household.
Right, anybody know why they're now saying this? They raided the Syrian camp. There's plenty of food there. They're taking gold and silver, and they're hiding this, and the whole 9 yards. So they have plenty to eat, but they're outside of the city. Why do you believe that they're saying that the things that they're doing is considered mischief? Okay, no problem. Read on verse 10.
Verse 10, so they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told them, saying, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied and donkeys tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night, and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry, therefore are they gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city.
Right, so everybody knows what's going on now. Why these 4 lepers are saying that, listen, what we are doing now is mischief. We all know why now, right?
Because they're stealing, right?
Yeah, they're looting the tents of the Syrians. Okay, now they were ousted out of the city because they have they have leprosy. But those inside of the city, they're starving. They're hungry. And so why should we now take all of this for ourselves? That's mischief, because we are all brothers. So what we're going to do now is go back now and talk to the porter, the officers here now, tell the king that we found the camp of the Syrians barren. There's nobody there. So that now those that are in the city can come out and eat. So it's like, we're all a family here. I'm rich. We're all rich. I hit the lotto. We all hit the lottery. So I can't now take it and this is mine. This is all about a mishpachah. All right. So read on. It's gonna get even more interesting.
Why would they call it mischief?
Because you're not sharing. If it's just like I said, the nation they're hungry. They're eating their children. And so they have all of this abundance, and you can't keep it just for yourself. And they said, we continue now to go from tent to tent, just eating up everything, taking all of the gold and everything that is there, the new clothing and all this stuff like that. But your brother now is in despair.
Right. So they're not taking it back over there. They just He's just keeping it for himself.
Yeah, and so let's take some gold and some silver and stuff like that. And once this leprosy is all cleared up and stuff like that, I'm rich.
Yeah.
I got some fresh garments, the whole 9 yards, so I'm good. But again, it's always about sharing and looking after the well-beings of your brother. Okay, read on as I can, please.
What am I, 13?
You're at
Yeah.
13. Okay.
2 Kings 7 and 13. And one of his servants answered and said, let some take, I pray you, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Yashra'al that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. They took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, go and see. And they went after them unto Jordan. And lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels, which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahuwah.
So remember hearing this before? Remember, Elisha had prophesied about this. And the reason why the Assyrians had left, because they had thought, because the father had made this great rumbling noise, and they thought now that this great multitude of people now was coming now to actually go to war with them. They said that the Israelites had hired the Hittites and the Egyptians. And so they ran and left everything there. They left the horses, the garments, the gold, the silver, they left everything there. All of it there. But remember now, this is something that's very important. There was a man that doubted. Everybody read this story before? Okay. Yeah. Remember, there was a man that doubted the prophecy of Elisha. Watch what happens. Read on.
Verse 17. And the king appointed the sovereign on whose hand he leaned to have the charge of the gate. And the people trod upon him in the gate. And he died, as the man of Elohim had said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of Elohim had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And that sovereign answered the man of Elohim and said, now behold, if Yahuwah should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, behold, thou shalt see it with your eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell out unto him, for the people trod upon him in the gate, and he died.
So we see what just happened. What happened here? The same man that mocked or did the scoffing, against Elisha here, he died. So just as he told him, you should see it, but you won't eat it. All right. So again, just making sure that we understand Tazaroth and understanding what brings about Tazaroth. And again, we're not talking about pimples and all that other stuff here. That's not what we're talking about when we look up the word leprosy. Now, let me read some information to the Mishpachah here, and I'll have this for you next week. Listen to this real carefully. Again, this is not a personal attack against anyone. According to the King James translation of the Bible, both Moses and Miriam suffered from leprosy, at some point in their lives. But the word often translated as leprosy is actually now Tazaroth. It is not the same as the disease we call leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease today. In the Bible, Tazaroth is a skin disease that can take many different forms. And in particular, bad cases can manifest itself on one's clothing, their personal belongings, and your house. Your house, all right? In addition to the skin. This because I say all the time, it is very, very important that we make sure who we are bringing into our houses. For example,
One second, Moreh. Repeat
okay.
that.
Okay, for example, Zabud and this Isha, they're letting us use their house, okay, for temple services. And while that is going on, this house is considered set apart. And being that it's set apart, those of us that are members here of the congregation of Yashra'al, we must make sure that we behave ourselves accordingly. First, because this house is set apart. When services are over, we must also conduct ourselves remembering that we are guests in the house. All right, so we have an Ish and an Isha in this house, and we must make sure that our mannerism and how we conduct ourselves in the house is done, is all done according to Torah. That's going to be extremely important. If we find ourselves not able to conduct ourselves during services or outside of services in a productive way according to the house, we have the Hebrew word tazarat, where that person or persons should be removed from the house. Also now with our personal houses, my personal house, your personal house, make sure that you understand who is coming under or crossing your threshold. Every single body has a vibration, an aura, and a character. We all have characters, all right? And we're all struggling with the dual nature within inside of us. Remember to be respectful in every man's house. Be respectful, because what's happening now is that when you bring negativity to a person's house, that person can leave, and that demonic spirit is still there. Still there. And then what happens now is that all of a sudden you and your Isha now are having problems, and you don't know what's going on. Somebody crossed your threshold, because remember the scriptures talked about, okay, even Exodus the 12th chapter, is that we were supposed to now put blood on the doorposts. The blood on the doorpost represented that the death angels now would actually fly over your houses, but those who didn't have the blood on the doorpost, those people were killed. So again, our conduct and our behavior, when we walk into this set-apart house here, make sure that you're on your best behavior. All right, because everybody has energy. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, be careful who you let in your house. Be very, very careful, because people gossip, they slander, there's lies. There are people that come into the house who are arrogant, they're envious of you, rehashing past arguments and scoffing. Those things are a no-no. And again, this tazarat, okay, these things could be left on clothing, your belongings, and your house, in addition to your skin. According to some of the rabbis, tazarat is caused by sin. This makes it a disease like no other. It is part medical condition and part spiritual pathology. I disagree when it talks about, the medical condition, but being that it's coming from the Father, this is all spiritual, okay? And yes.
No, I'm with you.
Oh, okay. Now, I have a note here. Now, 2 chapters of the book of Leviticus are devoted to the laws of dealing with someone who's afflicted with tazarat. Symptoms described include swelling and whitish red spots on the torso, according to the Torah. When a person saw that he may be coming down with tazarat, he consulted with a priest or a kohen. All right, the word for priest is kohen. Who examines him, diagnosed him, was counterintuitive. A person who has spots covering his whole body was considered infected. Everybody, y'all know the whole thing with Leviticus, where if a person had spots and things like that, he would have to see them. Okay, great. All right, so we don't have to go through all of these scriptures here. Who has spots covering his whole body was not considered infected. Someone who was infected could be granted a grace period if they were about to get married. These rules were detailed and explained by the rabbis in the Mishnah and also in the Talmud. So if you're going to read the Mishnah and the Talmud, just read it with discretion, all right? So if you're mature enough to read it, fine, because there's also there's a lot of garbage in there too. Okay, but again, when we look at the Babylonian Talmud, we did have a Talmud, and it just goes into detail explaining now. It's like a commentary. All right, so anyway. But that implies that Tazarah did not operate in the same way as the infectious diseases we're familiar with today. On the other hand, part of the treatment for Tazarah was isolation from the community. So a person now who was a gossiper, a slanderer, a liar, a person who was arrogant, envy, rehashing past arguments, and scoffing, that brought about a different aura and character about the person, and a lot of the time the person's skin would be an indicator that they're a sinful person, or they fit one of these characteristics. And that person now was put outside of the house. So, like for example, I'm sure everybody went through this. When I had any of these attributes when I was growing up, my mother now will put me into isolation, where she will put me not out of the house, but she would say, listen, when you come home from school, you go straight to your room, and you can't communicate with the other brothers and sisters and things like that. There's no TV nor anything. Now, the 7 times, what my mother would do, not knowing then, but the punishments usually lasted for 7 days or a whole week. During that 7 times, those seven days now, what is supposed to happen and actually cleanses you is that you're now reflecting on these attributes that you have. And then after, because my mother, for example, would be the priest. And so after the 7 days was up, did you learn your lesson? And if you learned your lesson, now you can go outside and play. You can watch TV and all these things like that. You can eat dinner with the rest of the family. But do you see how a lot of things that we did or our parents might have been doing, it was scriptural, but not maybe at that time able to find it in scripture? So in order for you now to be part of the community again, the priest would have to look at you or see whether or not you were cleansed or whether or not you still had these qualities in you. Because anything that's going to disturb the household can't be part of the community. Everybody is dealing with that dual nature that's inside of them. All of us. So let's just keep it real. Even Shaul talked about the dual nature that's inside of him that he fights with every single day. And this is that battle that we all face every single day. But the job is for the spiritual man to subdue the weaker or that disagreeableness that's inside of every last one of us, all right? We're not going to do that Christian thing. Listen, we're struggling here, all right? Or maybe you're not. Me, all right? So whenever I want to do good, okay, evil was right there. Kasadahba, but maybe just this one time. Okay. Yeah.
That's why Shaul said in 1 Corinthians 14, the ruach of the prophet is subject to the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
Because that ruach that's in you is subject to you. Rule that ruach.
Exactly. We have to learn how to do that. We definitely have to learn how to do that. So when we see that disagreeable spirit coming up in us, at some point, with maturity, you say, listen, you know what? Maybe right now is not a good time for us to continue with this conversation, because you know what? It's just going to escalate, and then it can get to the point where a shoving match can happen, anything, or you might say something that you might not be able to take back. So it's always important to understand this gossip and slandering, all these things here, this Tazarah. You don't want it to overtake you, because you might have to call 911 or whatever to have somebody removed from the house. So learn how to control. We all must learn how to control our ruach. So let me just read on with this real quick so we can speed it up. So there was concern about the disease spreading from person to person. All right. If Tazarah was confirmed, 3 separate ceremonies were required on 3 different days. The ceremonies were focused on sacrifices and cultic rituals. The infected person had to offer a guilt offering and a sin offering, and the rabbis added requirements for repentance as well. Aside from the chapter dealing with the laws of Tazareth, which is Leviticus, the 13th chapter and 14th chapter, the disease comes up in the narrative parts of the Torah twice. After encountering the burning bush, Moses worries that the elders of Yashra'al won't believe him. Elohim gives Moses two signs, turning his staff into a snake and then back to a staff, and turning his hand white with Tazareth, which is leprosy, and then back to normal again. Exodus, or the book of Shemot, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 8. I'm just going to speed this up here a little bit. Miriam, Moses' sister, is afflicted with Tazareth as she and Aaron criticizes Moses' choice of the Cushite wife, which is the book of Numbers, the 12th chapter. Now, Aaron wasn't stricken with Tazareth, but Miriam was. Anybody know why? Miriam was stricken with Tazareth. And we're not talking about leprosy as we know it today. It was because of her mouth. Okay? Second guessing Moses here. Okay, so we have to learn how to bridle the tongue. All right? Though Moses and Aaron pleaded for her to be healed immediately, she was to be isolated from the camp for 7 days to reflect now on what you just did. When I speak to Moses, I don't speak to him like any other man in dreams and visions and all that stuff like that. When I speak to Moses, I talk to Moses or Moshe here face to face, pani, face to face. All right? Other later biblical characters who suffer from Tazareth are Naaman, a commander of the Armenian army, which is 2 Kings, what we just read, the 5th chapter. And after interacting with him, Gehazi, a servant of the prophet Elisha, comes down with Tazareth as well. 4 men with Tazareth pillaged the Armenian camp after it was abandoned. 2 Kings, the 7th chapter, verses 3 to 10, we read that. King Azariah suffered from Tazareth, which is in 2 Kings, the 15th chapter, verse 5. We didn't read that, but we're not going to read that because of time. As did King Uzziah, 2 Chronicles, the 16th chapter, verses 20 to 23. He also suffered from this leprosy. Speed it up here a little bit. Traditionally, Jewish thinkers have understood Tazareth in a variety of ways. The Talmud, the 7 reasons one might be afflicted with the disease: gossip, murder, perjury, all the things that we just mentioned. Let's see. So that's pretty much about it. I can email or have a copy for this for everybody next week. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. If we can have Solomon, please, if you can read that for us. The book of Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. Hebrews. Hebrews is before, after James, it's before Philemon. We have Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1 Peter's.
Yeah, I think it's called something different here. Okay, here it is. Hebrews 4, verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
For the word of Yahuwah is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even the divine asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart.
Wow. So anybody know why the question is, why is the sword of Yahuwah two-edged, sharp on both sides? You're talking about the sword here. The reason why is because the sword can be used to protect. It can also be used to execute. All right. So when the Father is swinging that sword, it's for judgment. It can also be used for protection. And let's go into that a little bit. The book of Matthew, the 12th chapter, I'm going to read that because I think everybody pretty much knows where we're going with all of this now. 12 and 33. It says, either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruits. So as a man speaketh, this is was actually what's inside of his heart. All right. O generation of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. All right. So if you really want to know what a person is really thinking, piss them off or give them a little truth serum. All right. And they'll let you know how they really feel about you. All right. O generation of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasures of his heart bringeth forth good things. And an evil man out of the evil treasures bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you, that every idol, so we have to be very careful, Mr. McCarthy. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. You better be careful. You better be careful. Like the song says, you better be careful what you do to me. So let's be mindful on how we communicate with one another. Again, everybody has their own personality, and let's try to learn how to deal with one another. Not everybody does things the same way. There's things that I do that you might not do. There's rules and regulations of your house, rules and regulations of your house, but it might not be applicable in my house. But we're still Torah followers. I mean, you'll come to my house and say, oh my, Kasadahba watches horror movies, or Kasadahba does X, Y, and Z, and you might not do that in your house. So let's learn how to respect one another, because when we begin to gossip and slander and lies, these things will come back in the day of judgment for us or against us. Verse 37, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words shalt thou be condemned. It can go both ways. 1 Peter 3 and 10. If we can get Jonathan, Yahukanan, if you could read that for me, please. 1 Peter 3 and 10. We almost done, Mr. Cobb. 1 Peter 3 and 10. Because we all are talking about end-time prophecies. We're talking about a Mishpachah. We're talking about building together. But we can't build together if we can't get along with one another. That's going to be very important before we do anything. Before we leave anywhere, do anything, we must learn how to get along with one another. On 1 Peter 3 and 10.
1 Peter 3 and 10. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile.
For he that will love life, and we all love life, right? Torah. We all love life. Life is Torah. And see good days. If he wants these things, then let him refrain his tongue from evil, for evil things, so that should be easy. And his lips that they speak no guile. Guile is associated with the word speech. Be careful how you talk and be mindful of one another. We all have feelings. All of us. So let's try to be mindful how we conduct ourselves with one another. Let's go to the book of Yehukanan, and the word that we want to look at here is the word guile. Guile, guile, guile. G-U-I-L-E. Guile. The book of Yehukanan, the book of John. If we can get our sister, I guess amnesia is starting to set in with me. Agoti, if you can. Yes, if you can read that for me, please. All right. It takes a little while, but it starts to click for me a little bit. So we're talking about guile here. 147.
Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and
Who?
said,
Who did? Nathaniel saw who? What happened here? No, I'm only messing with you. The Mashiach.
Okay.
I'm only messing with you. Okay, you can start 47 again.
Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and
Okay,
said,
I hear you. Okay.
Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile.
Okay, so that word guile is very important. So we know this Jesus here to be Yashra'al Mashiach. Okay, so the word that we're looking at is the word guile. The word guile, to be without guile, means to be free of deceit, cunning, and dishonesty, as Adam and Ku'ua were. However, Nakash, the adversary, brought beguileness. So we have the word guile. And I apologize for what's going on with page 2. All right, I kind of close to the edge there. But so we have the word guile and beguile. So again, however, Nakash, the adversary, brought beguileness to Ku'ua, or Eve. She brought in deceit, cunning, and dishonesty. All right. So when the Mashiach now is speaking to Nathanael, he said, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, who there is no guile." So his conduct and his mannerism was Tomio to the Mashiach. Okay, it was all good. Beguile is a mixture. Bereshit, the third chapter, Mishpachah. And I appreciate everybody's patience here tonight, but I just thought it very important that we understand what's going on. Now, Genesis, Bereshit, the third chapter, verse 1. Now the serpent, okay, the word serpent is Nakash. When we look at his characteristics, is everything that we had talked about, the slander, the gossip, and everything like that. That's what he's into. So the word serpent is Nakash. It's the serpent, and he's a whisperer. He's an enchanter, practice divinations. So all of these things here makes up a disagreeable nature. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. You can look up subtle on your free time. Of the field which the father of Yahuwah had made, and he said unto the woman, have Elohim said you should not eat of every tree of the garden. Go down to verse 13. Watch what happened. And the serpent of Yahuwah said unto the woman, what is it that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent has what? Beguiled. So there was now a mixture that was now found in both Adam and his Isha. So the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. Psalms, the 32nd chapter, verse 2. If we can get Zabud, if you can read that for me, please. Psalms 32 and 2. We're going to bring it on home. 32 and 2.
Baruch is the man unto whom Yahuwah imputed not iniquity.
Mm-hmm.
And in whose spirit there is no guile.
No guile. Just as there was no guile found in Nathan. Okay, there was a time when there was no guile found in Adam and his Isha. But when they played Russian roulette with the adversary, we have a mixture, and that brought about death. And every man will be measured, okay, according to every word that he speaks. Psalms 34:13. Zabud, please. 34:13.
Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile.
Right, and so what is guile? Guile is, again, Mishpachah, it is gossip, slander, lies, arrogance, envy, rehashing past arguments, and scoffing. Those things are considered guile. Let it go. We now have the book of James, the third chapter, 2 to 18. If we can get Okoti, Catherine, to bring us on home, and we'll be done.
James chapter 3, verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man.
So that was important, verse 2. For in many things we offend all. So all of us have some cleaning up to do. All right? Read on.
If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body.
Wow.
Behold, we put bits in horses' mouth, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask Yaakov, Brother James here. And we begin to look at these things here. We begin to look at the hem of a ship. We begin to look at the bridle that's put into the horse's mouth, because we can actually control the horse because of this little bit that's in his mouth. He goes to the left or to the right. A big ship, as big as a ship is, we have this helm, and the, what do you call the guys that drive this? The captain of the ship, right? It's the captain of the ship. Yeah, the captain. Yeah. What do you call the thing that you drive the airplane? Is that a steering wheel? What is that? A yoke, okay. And so with that yoke, you can turn the plane to the left or to the right, have it dip down and go up. But it's such a little member, okay, and it can be a situation of life and death as you're driving or flying this plane, and I just found it interesting, real interesting. Read on, please.
James 3 verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth.
The tongue can do all of that. And you know what? The tongue has no bones. It has no bones. But it can break a person's bones by what you say. But it has no bones. Read on.
Verse 6. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature.
Wow.
And it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind.
We can do all of that. All of that we can do. All right?
But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith bless we Yahuwah, even the Father, and therewith curse we with men, which are made after the similitude of Yahuwah.
So we use this same mouth to give praises and alms to the Father, and you turn around, you know good mother this and none, you can kiss this, and yeah, I mean, with the same mouth. Kindle the fire. But you guys okay?
Well, nah, because this just brought back a memory. You know, I always just, when I read this, I thought about back in the 90s when we used to be out there, we used to bless, and then the next thing you know, we started putting out the curses facing the facing the east, and then start cursing people. You know what I'm saying? You know. Yeah.
It's crazy. It is really, really crazy. Where and this is what happens if you piss a person off. They'll tell you, listen, you know what? Those scriptures go out the window.
Yeah.
Negro, listen, you just hurt my feelings now, all right?
Yo.
All that Israelite stuff, I ain't trying to hear that no more, all right? I'm about to let you have it. You want to see the true me now. I'm like, oh, really? The true you now. Oh, so everything else now was a facade, okay? So again, let's learn how to control that tongue there, all right? Well, don't bring that out of me, I'm telling you, you know, because you don't want to see that side of me, all right? So let's learn how to bridle the tongue and make sure that we stay in one accord with the Father here, all right? You know, because, you know, we all do it, you know, but let's try to learn how to control that our ruach, all right?
I can say I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah, we all, you know, we don't say, you know, throw out the Torah. We don't do that.
Right.
But you know, sometimes, you know, that disagreeableness can surface. But the thing now is that a righteous person will be like, he can check it real quick before it gets out of hand.
Right.
You know, so and it comes with maturity, you know, being in this walk for so long. But read on.
Verse 10. Out of the same mouth proceeded baruching and cursing. My brother, these things ought not be so.
Okay.
Does a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter?
No, of course not.
Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine, figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh.
You're going to either do one or the other.
Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom.
Right, hallelujah. So it means nothing, okay, for you to take the back road, all right? And this is just a joke, and at the same time I'm serious, all right? But but again, it's the joke. Man, I can't stand folks. That folks restaurant, I don't like folks, bro. That food was horrible. I wanted to go to Smoky Bones,
Yes.
Smoky Bones or a barbecue spot. But I said, listen, you know what? I'm going to play the back and we'll go out to folks. Because the main thing is that we got the chance to eat together as a mishpachah.
Right.
But again, it was just a joke. What I'm just trying to share here is that sometimes that we might have to, okay, baby, you know what? I don't really want to eat there. And just like as Abu said, who in the world goes to a restaurant to eat meatloaf? you know, so.
Yeah, nobody got it.
But, right. And so,
But you didn't say that.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I'm just saying that as a joke,
Right.
but showing the bigger picture is that sometimes, you know what, in our relationships, you know what, we might want to do something and Isha might want to do another thing. You know what, listen, we did it your way last week or the week before that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it my way this week. You know, no problem. We all good because this is.
Because she forgets.
Yeah, hallelujah. Everything is totally on.
No, yeah, we did it your way last time. Now we have a chili casserole.
Hallelujah. Excuse me. Okay, let's finish her up, Miss McCarthy. It's almost 10.
But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish.
Right, devilish, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, in the Aramaic, it said it calls about, it says a demon, you know. So read on.
For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Hallelujah. And when I did here, I wanted to kind of do a better job on the.
I kind of figured that's what that was.
Yeah, I said let me take my time and do something a little bit better than I did the last time here with the menorah and the two witnesses. And so again, the characteristics that we're supposed to have according to Scripture, you did in Isaiah 11 chapter verse 2, is that we should have the same attributes as the Mashiach. The Mashiach is the menorah. Actually, the body is the menorah, and the candlesticks or the nar, or the naruth in Hebrew, is counsel, might, understanding, knowledge, wisdom, and fear of the Mashiach. And Mishpachah, that is tonight's lesson. I pray that we were all able to gather something from it, as I definitely was when I was reading this. I'm going to have to, do some things with myself and learning how to be more steadfast in Torah, because this is about building a family, and we all need to be able to learn and trust one another, because when the day do come for us to actually have to make that move, because I really believe that we're on the brink again of something happening major, because Donald Duck Trump, whatever you want to call him, Donald Duck, whatever. But anyway, he reopened the government for 3 weeks, and it can even be worse what's about to happen within the next few weeks, because if he declares an executive order, that can be a major problem. We now see the problem happening now where to kind of steer people's attention away from things, now they're having problems with Venezuela. Okay, so just make sure that we don't get sidetracked, okay, because between now and that time, there's going to be a lot of things happening. They want to send troops there. And so they can actually use that as leverage. See, listen, you know what? With some of our Spanish-speaking brothers here, this is the reason why we might need a wall. Again, we're in debt, or America is in debt. They will never be able to pay off the debt. Never. It's not going to happen. It's all downhill from now. And I just want to make sure again that we go together stronger as a mishpachah. That's all I'm asking. Anybody have any questions, anything they would like to add? Feel free to do so, or forever hold your peace.
I thought it was a good study. None of it really applies to me, but
Oh, okay, guys, because I know a lot of times,
I'm perfect.
yeah.
But,
Hey, listen.
I thought this was excellent, excellent study, and I see some things I need to work on, and I'm gonna do that.
Yes, we all do. And perfect just means mature. So that's all what it means. So when we do find ourselves in any of these categories, or we find ourselves not behaving, what makes you mature or perfect is that you're able to now not let it get out of control, and you're able to now gain control of the situation again before it gets crazy. Because, and there might be times where the Ish or the Isha might say, listen, you know what, I think we need to fall back now. Let's not continue with this situation. And then, for example, the Ish might follow behind the Isha. No, we're going to talk about this right now. Right now. And so what you just seen happen there is that the Isha took the spiritual route and said, listen, I don't want to see this escalate, so let's table this for now. And then let's come back a little bit later and deal with the situation, or vice versa. But you never want the situation to get out of control where you begin to call each other names. And even when when we're dealing and stuff like that, listen, you know what, Zakane, right now we have a disagreement and things like that. Before things get out of hand, listen, you know what, you'll say, listen, Kasadahba, listen, you know what, I'm going to fall back for now. You know what, I'm going to give you your space, let you breathe a little bit, and then we can revisit it at another time. So, and we all have to do that, because we don't want to get to the point where we start this Tazaroth. I mean, it is very, very important. We can even get to the point where it can lead to death, as we showed in scriptures, I believe, without a doubt. Anybody else? Okay.
I think I want to say something as far as the. I think we got to be careful also that we have a spirit of kindness and justice. And my parents and I had a rehabilitation home, and a lot of the people there taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And there's times when my arrogant self had to get down into some of those boxes and pull some of the brothers out that was in some really bad shape. And you would think that I was afraid I might get sick or whatever, but in order to do the job, you had to pick them boys out, put them on your back, take them to the hospital.
Yeah.
But so that thing taught me a lot about being humble, especially the way you come out of that box sometimes, and what you might smell like. But at the end of the day, I said sometimes I just think that we gotta have a heart for people who are in need, and sometimes when they come into the congregation, they're not always looking the way we would expect them to look, or being the way we would expect. And you got to give that person a chance to grow. Maybe they're not dressing the way you think they should dress because they just don't have money. You see, and our money is so allocated to so many other things. So I think we have to understand that and be willing to make room for people to grow, to and then sometimes, like you said, we just might not see eye to eye right now.
Right.
You see, and then later on, after we grow, or after you done showed something to me or whatever in the scripture, then I have a chance to get it through my head a little bit, and then I'll come back. That's just me saying the way I think at that point. But I'm just saying a lot of times we don't. We can take on the legalistic, and I've seen this in churches across the board, congregations, churches across the board, that we get a legalistic view at things, and this is the way it should go, and if it's not done that way, you know, I just can't deal. But sometimes it's not that big of a deal, you know, and we make it a big deal, but it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
You see, it might be to you, but to the other person it might not be. And you got to give that person a chance to grow to the point where it is a big of a deal. Now I understand that time is short. I mean, the time is short, and so if we don't get it soon, we might be one of the ones on the outside that ain't gonna make it in.
Right.
So it is an urgency, okay? But I would rather not turn people away or run people away, and that's just a little bit more patience. That I'm just saying we gotta have patience with people.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so that's all I'm saying. Again, not directed toward anybody. Just, I've seen this in so many churches, okay, to where, you know, I had one guy come to me and tell me, hey, I mean, well, the girl told me, well, you were a womanizer. And I'm like, well, I've never been with any woman here in the church. How could I be a womanizer? And when you sit down and really talk to the people, it turned out to be that, well, I just don't like you. You see, or I just don't like the way you do things. So that whole legalistic thing, to where we're like the Pharisees, and no matter what we do, we gotta dot every I and cross every T.
Yeah.
That could be very annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Not only annoying, it could be very turned off. And so I think we need to look at that. And I'm guilty of it. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Okay? And so that was some of the things that was coming out in my head as we were going through this. You know, maybe I don't have to be so tough on my family members, you see, or something like that. The last time I'm thinking about this, I'm going through was a scenario going in my head with my family, or with Catherine's family, or something like that. Because that's what probably the two things that take up the bulk of my mindset and stuff like this. So, you know, I have one sister that literally drives me up the wall and back down again, and that's what the one I'm really thinking of when I'm dealing with this. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It
And
takes a lot
like I
of
said,
patience.
I gotta work on some stuff.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. And what's interesting about the whole thing now is that the race is not to the swiftest. It's not happening like that. That's the reason why the scripture says that we in this vineyard all agree to the same might, that same penny. If you came in, if the clock strikes 12 and that's it, if I came in at 9 o'clock and you came in at 11:58, you know, we all get the same penny. You know, so
And then this is another thing. Maybe you guys can help me with this. So you got somebody that come in and they might not believe like you do, but they still need help.
right.
You see what I'm saying? What do we do? Do we say because we're Israelite, you might bring these demons or whatever in my house? I don't want you here. You can't come. Or do we, at some point in time, say, well, you know what? I mean, I don't want you practicing those spirits in my house. I was there doing seances in the bedroom.
Right.
But maybe because you might not believe, let's say you're Harry Krishna, and I'm something else, or well, that's pretty bad. So let's just say Jehovah's Witness. But you need a place to stay. You see what I'm saying? Just for a minute. Do we say, no, you can't come here? Or do we say, let me buy your room, let me give you something, let me help you out?
If a person's a Jehovah's Witness and
let's say this
for example,
that as an example.
right,
I'm Israelite. I'm not Jehovah's Witness.
right.
Okay. Matter of fact, I had them come to the door. We sit there and we talk for hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do? That person might come here and he might stay a week or 2 weeks and leave and still be a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do in that sense? Because a lot of times you can be so afraid that you're afraid to even open your door.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So, especially when it comes to the whole spirits thing flying up around the house. You see? So where does our kindness and our love for humanity come in? Does that make any sense, or am I
It's a love for
sounding-
humanity. I think Coach, you had an answer to.
So to go with what you were saying, what about people who don't want the help? They're not necessarily coming to look for the help, because Scripture talks about, if your brother sins against you and he repents, then you forgive him. But what about if he doesn't repent? What do you do in a situation like that?
You hit him on the back. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the person, again, just what we have here in the congregation of Yashra'al is that we have a disclaimer. There's just a way that we do things here in the house, all right? And in order to be part of the house, you have to follow the house rules. There has to be rules. If a person is coming here, that's, say for example, they're a Jehovah's Witness, but they want to come here and they want to learn and see what we're talking about, fine, no problem. But we're doing everything under the banner of the covenant that the Father made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Right.
There is no exceptions with that.
Exactly.
We're not Jehovah's Witness, we're not Muslims, we're not Moors, we're not Seventh-day Adventists, we're not none of those things.
Right.
Because we must make sure at the end of the day that we give all esteem to the Father of Yahuwah for sending his son, Yashra'al HaMashiach, to be that atoning sacrifice for the nation of Yashra'al. I've been saying that now for years. That's my introduction to every class that I do. But if a person now, because we can't be unequally yoked, we can't do that. Because the scriptures also talk about cutting people off. So after a time, where are you at now? Just like Zakim brought out, even my Isha, we was talking about it last week. And he said something very, very powerful, extremely powerful. With any congregation, but especially the congregation of Yashra'al, because we're the congregation of Yashra'al, when we break bread together, that means now that we're in commune together. We believe in the Father, the Son, and the Mashiach. We believe that we're Israelites. We are a body. We believe that. Now, if you believe that you're a Muslim, a Seventh-day Adventist, and all this other stuff, you're causing problems. Because even inside of your own household, you and your family eat together because you're a family. The word family in Hebrew is mishpachah. A mishpachah are those now that are in a household that agree. You and the Akkad. I can't have lunch with you, okay, if you and I are not in the Akkad. That's a problem. Now, if there's an issue, we can talk about that issue and try to rectify the situation, all that stuff there. But everything that we do is in the name of the Father. You know what? The Mashiach said, I come not to do my will, but the Father's will. And if they bring not this Torah, it even says not to even receive that person into your house. Don't, no. Because again, that person has other intentions, and that person now will sow a seed in your house. All right? He's a Seventh-day Adventist, whatever it is that he might be. And then all of a sudden now, your son will come back, well, Daddy, the Quran said this, though. Okay? The New World, I think it's called the New World Translation with the King James and the Jehovah's Witness Bible. Well, Charles Taze Russell said this. Okay? Such and such said this. So we don't want that disturbance or anybody sowing a bad seed, because remember the word Tazarat means a mix. And what the adversary did was that he beguiled Eve by sowing a mix inside of her. And so the tree of life is there, and the tree of good and evil. The tree of good and evil is a mix. The adversary shows some things that were true and some things that were not true. And the Father's not dealing with a mix. He's dealing with a pure seed. Your clothing is supposed to... He is so particular. Don't mix your seeds. I don't want your sheep in the same field with the horses, because that's going to cause a confusion. I don't want the sheep to go into heat, and then the horses go into heat, and then all of a sudden the sheep is mounting the horses or whatever.
Even in Revelation when he say, because thou art lukewarm, which is a mix.
Right.
You know, you're here and you're there. I'll spew you out of
Right, exactly. And then a person that's lukewarm or neutral, a person that's neutral, you try to put your car in neutral and then put your foot on the gas pedal. You ain't going nowhere. You either gonna go, listen, you're in the car, you got the car started up. Make up your mind. You either gonna go forward or in reverse. But if you put that car in neutral, you ain't going nowhere.
Yep, he said, I worked that you were cold or hot.
Yeah.
Choose one.
Exactly, choose
Which
one.
it's gonna be.
Absolutely.
So if a person is a Jehovah's Witness,
Mm-hmm.
or Muslim or whatever, any other degree name, they're praying to a different Elohim, which makes their Elohim, which makes their prayer really satanic.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that, yeah. I mean, I'm not making...
That's that's, I guess hitting it really hard for lack of a better word. Or if they are, which means you don't want that spirit in your house.
It's disagreeable.
It's a disagreeable spirit.
Yeah.
So if a person is, or if they're reading another way, or reading maybe they are reading the New King James, or where they changed everything or took everything out, or the Christian religion. So you don't want, and help me with this, because let's say people who are Christians, they believe in
Jesus.
Yeah. So look. So do you want? I mean, is it okay for those people to be here because they are, even though they? In other words, what you're saying, if a person is ignorant of what they're doing, and you talk to them, it's okay for them to come. It's okay for them to sit here, learn. But if they're in another situation where they're trying to force their way or teach their way, knowing that the place where they are is not, knowing that we're Israel and we're not following what they're doing, and they're trying to do it anyway, at some point in time we need to look at them and go, hey, wait a minute here, we gotta cut you off.
Yeah, that's you saw in Discord. I mean, I'm sure all of us, we're of age now. We've already was kids, so we all grown here. My mother told me, all right, if you can't follow the rules and regulations of the house, you got to go. So it's the same thing with the Father's house. In order to be in the Father's house, you have to follow the rules and regulations. The reason why we're now dispersed amongst the four corners of the earth is because we didn't want to follow the rules and regulations. The same crap that Israel is involved in today is pretty much about the same thing.
Right.
I am the Elohim that brought you out of Egypt. I am. Israel, it was less than 40 days. Okay, we rounded off. We played with a safe number. It was about 45 days. After Israel came out of Egypt, Moses goes to the top of the mountain, and Israel goes back into idol worshiping with the bull. Come on. After seeing all of the miracles, all the things that the Father has done for the nation of Israel, we quickly turned our back. Now, how would you like, for example, Zabu, you being, you're the Ish, you're the man of your house, and then now your Isha, she gives all of the credit that's been coming into the house by another man, or calls you by another man. How would that make you feel? You out there busting your knuckles, doing everything that you can to provide and be the husband that you need to be, and then all of a sudden, she said, listen, you know what, technically I don't need you. And started calling you by another man's name. And this is the reason why the scripture tells us in the book of Ezekiel, the 16th chapter, it says that Jerusalem waxed fat and she kicked. She said, listen, you know what, you decked me with gold and silver, and, you put a jewel in my forehead, you put a big chain upon my neck, and all these rings on my finger, and because of my beauty, all the other nations was envious of me. And then she said, well, thanks, but no thanks, but, I'm good. My own hands got me this. I don't need you now. That's what the nation of Israel literally did. And so anything now not giving esteem to the Father of Yahuwah is a lie. If a person comes to me with the New World Translation, because the Jehovah's Witnesses have their own Bible, the New World Translation Bible, and they've taken out a whole lot of stuff out of there. My aunt, she tells me, and she's a Jehovah's Witness, she said, well, basically, but she calls, she said, well, basically, you're wasting your time because we already have the 144,000. The Jehovah's Witnesses, we already had it. And none of them look like you and I.
Right.
I had to discontinue a person who shared with me through email that they had an issue with our Moreh's teaching, and he said that we are a racist group. His thing was that he can understand, for the most part, I'm just going to paraphrase it here now, is that why the 144,000 doesn't consist of Caucasians.
Wow.
But it clearly says 12,000 from Judah, Benjamin.
All the way to Issachar.
Listen, your problem is you got to pick that up with the Father.
Wow.
That's what it said.
Yeah.
And again, the strangers can come in, but they have to follow the rules.
That's
But
racist.
from my experience, you let certain groups come in, they want to take over the whole thing.
That's true.
So we just have to be careful and use discretion with everything that we're doing. So in final, Mr. McCall, I'm just saying is that we're Israelites. There's a great awakening. I even shared with Brother Lamar. Me personally, I believe that that Atlanta is like the new Mecca. Okay, we have the Atlanta Israelite, and that page is going on, and there's a lot that's going on, and all of us are seeing and understanding the emergency that's coming. But again, if a person is of another denomination, if they want to come and learn, we have no problems.
Okay.
No problems at all. But you can't come trying to push your doctrine. You just can't do it, because it even got to the point where it's talking about a mix. There was an Israelite woman that was married to an Egyptian king, not king, but an Egyptian guy. And remember, her son started to blaspheme against the father, and Moses went and inquired to the father. Said, "Listen, put that joker to death." In other words, take the biggest 2x4 or cement block that you can find, and you crack that skull, because we can't have a cancer in Israel.
Right.
We can't do it. If you let that cancer continue to grow and you keep spewing that doctrine amongst the house of Israel, it's going to cause a cancer. Or it's going to leave a disagreeable, a demonic spirit inside of your house. It's going to cause a problem.
And that's that leaven.
Yeah, that's leaven. Exactly.
Leaven. Exactly.
And a little leaven,
Leaven is the whole lump.
and then next thing you know, everybody in the congregation is in disarray. It's Torah right here. If you believe in Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, the Latter-day Saints, and they teach that black people are dark, this complexion is dark because of a curse.
That's right.
If you want to follow that doctrine, do your thing. Yeah, do your thing. I mean, but here, me and my family, what does it say in Scripture? Me and my
As
family?
for me and my family, we shall serve Yahuwah.
It gets no simpler than that.
That'll be nice.
We good?
Good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's blow the shofar.
Okay. Please.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
If we can have Brother Yonatan to end us with prayer. Appreciate it, please.
Heavenly Father, Yah, thank you, Yahweh, Yahweh, for looking upon us and preserving us from the ills and the evils of this world, oh Yah. Setting us aside as your remnant and as your chosen. Yah, we know we're surrounded by various temptations and various trials that put us through various sufferings. But I pray, Yah, that you continue to bestow upon us the graces and mercies for the kesed that comes from your Son, Yashra'al, and preserve us that we may endure unto the end. Remove from our hearts malice. Allow our minds to think upon high things, to think upon good things, whatsoever is lovely, whatsoever is pure, and release our hearts from the weights of the different burdens and the trials of life that knock us off track ever so often. Show us the bigger picture. Remind us why we do what we do, why we pray, why we fast, why we must love one another. So we thank you, Yah, and we pray that you continue to cover us until the time of the coming of your Son. In Yeshua's name we pray. Yashra'al.